On this day, in 1935, Persia officially changed its name to Iran. But what was behind this rebrand and who decided it? Well, to answer that, we will take a little trip back to the 1800s and look at Iran's history with imperialism. Now, Iran had not exactly been colonised in the way that India and Singapore had, but it had also not been colonised. In a series of wars in the 17 and 1800s with notorious bastards, Britain and Russia, they lost a lot of territory to them. So Russia and Britain divided Iran between them into spheres of influence, with Russia sphering the north and Britain sphering the south. The Iranian monarchy, the Qajar dynasty, had essentially become puppets with Russia and Britain, taking whatever they wanted with little regard for the people that they were taking it from. And surprisingly, people didn't mad love this. In 1890, a deal was struck with a British guy called Baron Paul Julius Reuter. It gave him a monopoly on Iranian tobacco at the cost of £25,000 to the Shah personally and £15,000 a year to the state of Iran. People were fuming. It was blatant robbery. Their tobacco was well good. It was worth so much more than that. And everyone loved smoking. The clergy got involved and they issued a fatwa against smoking. So everybody stopped smoking tobacco in protest. Even the Shah's harem. Everybody must have been an absolute nightmare to deal with. But after 2 years, it was successful and it gave people a taste of winning and nicotine. The public's dissatisfaction was also expressed when the monarch, Nasser al-Din Shah, was assassinated in 1896. His son Mozaffar was not much better. He took loans from the Russians to fund a lavish lifestyle, whilst again just allowing them to take whatever they wanted, including tobacco. He also let them dig up a cemetery to build a bank, and I have never heard anything more capitalist in my whole life. Under duress, Mozaffar created the Iranian constitution and parliament, which limited his powers in 1906. He then promptly died of a heart attack, leaving the country to divide itself into monarchists and constitutionalists, which is never a good thing. The next Shah was not all over this. In 1908, he decided to try and get his powers back from Parliament in a year-long period known as the Minor Tyranny, which underplays things in the same way that calling what happened in Northern Ireland the Troubles did. By 1922, the Russians had had their revolution, and things hadn't gone too well for their monarchy. It must have been a really lovely period of hope for the general population until they found out that everything was going to be just as horrible, but in a different way. You know, sometimes a change is as good as a rest, isn't it? It also made things differently horrible for the people of Iran. The British didn't want communism taking hold and threatening their interests. So, a British general called Tiny Ironside, what a name, chose a military commander called Reza Khan to take the capital, Tehran, which he did. He installed his own prime minister and he made himself Minister of War. A year later, in 1923, he became the prime minister as well. At this point, the Shah, Ahmed, decided that it would probably be a good time to take a little holiday to Europe, and Reza Khan thought, oh, sick, another job vacancy, and he became the Shah in 1926. It really is impressive where a little bit of confidence can get you, isn't it? You know, dress for the job that you want and bypass the interview process. As a dictator, Reza started out strong. He put money into modernising the country. He founded the University of Tehran and he made education compulsory for both boys and girls. He annoyed the clergy by giving women some rights and making people dress in the Western styles. His reform gave Iranian Jews some job opportunities and rights. He built roads, hospitals, he created a civil service and a small army. He also really liked punishing his subordinates by kicking them in the groin. He was a terrible father. He showed his children no affection. He enjoyed physical punishment. He beat up a priest. He married a teenager when he was in his 40s. He forced his children into unhappy marriages. He was manipulative. He killed some people. People were scared of him. What I'm saying is he was a mixed bag, you know? And on this day in 1935, he changed the name of the country from Persia to Iran. Now, Iran had always been known as Iran in Iran, but the colonisers had decided that that wasn't their name. Sort of like, so what's your name? I'm called Ahmed. I'ma call you Tony. That kind of vibe, you know? So Persian had referred to a certain ethnic group in Iran, and I guess the British and Russians heard this and decided to run with it, you know? The purpose of the name change was to make Iran Iranian after so many years of European countries taking advantage of them. Now, Iran means land of the Aryans, and there was another leader of a country around this time who was all over those. Germany and Iran they were very closely allied, and they were trading partners in the 1930s and the early 1940s. Nearly half of all Iranian imports had come from Germany, and 42% of their exports went to Germany. The German leader declared Iranians as the only other pure Aryans aside from Germans. Reza's game plan for World War II was to play the Russians and the British off against one another, because remember, at the time, at the beginning of the war, the Russians were on the German side. Alas, the British and Russians joined forces pretty quickly and invaded Iran in 1941. Reza told his army to surrender to avoid the World War being brought to Iran, and he had to abdicate and let his son take over as Shah. Thankfully, we are still calling Iran by its proper name, but unfortunately the people of the country don't seem to be getting any of the peace that they deserve, particularly the country's female citizens, but that is a whole different story. My takeaway from this is, stand up for what you believe in, don't let people take advantage, and call people by their proper name. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Why not subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow.